or they're nobody. Or some people would tell you that your value is based upon the sum total of your successes versus your failures. And if your successes in life outweigh your failures, well then, you're a person of value and you have something to offer this world. But if your failures outweigh your successes, if you've just messed up too many times in your life, or if your burdens outweigh your benefits, then in the ledger sheet of life, you're a liability. You're either not worth as much as everybody else, or you're disposable. And I guess I had really bought into that lie. And I wanted to have all of my assets lined up so people could look at me and see me as being a person of value at a time in my life when I felt like I was being devalued every day. And isn't that why so many young women choose abortion? Because they think that somehow that their life isn't going to be worth as much if they had this child out of wedlock. That they wouldn't be as marketable for marriage, and this would be seen as a failure, where they couldn't get their college degree in just the right amount of time. And they buy into abortion as being the solution because they want to stay in the rat race. They want to be a person of value. And I know what it's like to feel that way. I ended up settling in relationships like I should be thankful that somebody would want to be with somebody like me. I jumped into relationships, so if after a short amount of time and a few intense conversations, a guy was telling me that I was the most amazing girl that he'd ever met, I'd take him at his word because I wanted so much to believe that was true. I wanted to know that somebody else could see me that way. I wanted to know that I was someone who was lovable. And I just had this huge hole in my heart that I desperately wanted to fill. Those relationships became more and more controlling. So again, after a short amount of time, the guy was telling me, oh, cancel your plans with your family or friends. Come see me. I just want to be with you. I miss you. Like, wow, that sounded so good at the time, but I realized that over time, I was allowing myself to become more and more alienated from my family and friends, isolated, dependent upon him for my emotional well-being. And those controlling relationships became more and more abusive, until ultimately I was beat up by a boyfriend from law school. He broke my jaw, my front tooth was hanging, I had to have all kinds of surgery to put back in, root canal, 6 months later, more surgery to try to save my front tooth. I was told I could still end up losing it someday. And after 13 years, I had to have my front tooth pulled, which again was devastating. But I was speaking at a banquet down in Alabama, and an expert in cosmetic dentistry came up to me afterwards and offered to do all of my teeth for free. And not just the 3 with the bridge and the 4 to match, but he did 8 teeth with porcelain veneers. So, and I share that story because it's just another example in my life where there was something that happened that was really, really awful. But then something beautiful came out of it. And the story doesn't have to end with the violence having victory. Now, let me make one thing clear. I am very thankful that I have this nice new set of teeth, but that does not make me pro-domestic violence. Just like being thankful for my life does not make me pro-rape. But people actually say that to me. They say, oh, so what you're saying is that if abortion had been legal, that you would have been aborted, you wouldn't be here today. Well, you know, if your mother hadn't been raped, you wouldn't be here today either. So does that mean that you're pro-rape? People actually say that to me. And I explained to them that there was a huge moral difference because I did exist and my life would have been ended because I would have been killed through a brutal abortion. Well, at the time that I had been beat up, I had really hit rock bottom. From all outward appearances, I had so much going for me. I excelled in academics and athletics. I was going to a great law school, but I was totally deteriorating on the inside over this whole issue of value. And that's when it was time to reassess, how did I get here? And I realized that I was living so much of my life by default, just sort of taking in whatever society had to offer, living my way by things that I would hear, like, you know, that, oh, if you want to have a good marriage, you gotta live with God first. law attorney that the highest rates of domestic violence are for people who live together before they get married. The highest rate of divorce, overwhelmingly, over 90%, is for people who live together before they get married. The highest rate of child abuse, child sexual abuse, is all for people who live together before they get married. Why? Wow. Why didn't I ever hear that when I was in college? Instead, I just kept hearing, like, this is what you should do. And I bought into that without question and without research. And I got hurt. So I began to live my life differently, sort of countercultural, so that I could take care of my own emotional well-being and stand back and observe someone's character over time in more of a group setting to see how people treat other people. Anybody can be on their best behavior with you one-on-one for a while, but it's important to see how people behave in group situations, how they honor commitments, and what their temperament is like, and how they treat others. Well, at the time, let me take you back to when I first turned 18 and I first learned how I was conceived. Of course, at that point, I thought about my birth mother, and I thought, she must hate me. This has absolutely got to be the worst thing that's ever happened to her in her life. She is never going to want to meet me. She probably wanted to abort me. And then again, after a while, I had it all figured out in my head that if somehow I could meet her and if I could hear that maybe there was some mistake, that this was not how I was conceived, then again, I could feel good about myself and I could feel safe. Like, I wouldn't have to feel like I was a target. I didn't want to be part of that classification, conceived and raped. Who would? So I ended up being one of the first people in Michigan to have a judge allow my caseworker to try to contact my birth mother and see if she wanted to meet me. And it worked. I was going to college out of state at the time, and I finally received a letter with my birth name, which was Judy Ann Miracle. So I was a miracle baby. I thought that was kind of cool. And I had her name, Joanne, with a phone number. Trembling, I called her up. She said that she was sorry to hear that I already knew, but then she proceeded to fill me in on some horrific details that I was totally unequipped to hear. She was 4'10", she weighed 90 pounds, single mom heading to the grocery store at night, right down the street from her home. The guy jumped out of the bushes with a knife, dragged her to a field, slit open her clothes with a knife, and then she basically went on to describe for me in graphic detail how he brutally raped her. And that's how I was conceived. And that was so hard to hear, for several reasons. First of all, to think that I was conceived out of a truly worst case scenario, I just felt totally worthless. Like garbage. Because people would say that my life was like garbage, that I was disposable. And then I had to realize that my biological father was a really bad man. She said she had gone to several police lineups and she stopped going because she wouldn't recognize his face. But that they knew that this was a serial rapist because there had been several of these rapes in that area at the time with the same signature of the crime. And then all these years I had really dreamed so much of being her. I had written poetry about being her. And so to hear that she had been violated like this really pained me. We arranged for me to fly home and meet her on her 51st birthday. And in the meantime, she sent me photos and a letter. And I'm just going to recite excerpts to give you a picture of where she was emotionally during this pivotal moment in both of our lives. She wrote, "My dearest Rebecca, hoping by now that the shock of finding out all the details of your birth are forgotten, for that was not reason enough of having to give up something as beautiful as you are. Nothing as precious as a baby, mostly when you go through the 9 months and the birth all alone, feeling like no one loves you. But you were so perfect and pretty. All these years I had nothing of you, nothing saying you were part of me. Just the memory of carrying a baby that I hoped someday